Hey, Wicked Deke here. Doing a quick video on the big news of the day. The Anschultz, the fighting Anschultz, in the air tonight. So I was going to get the song from Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, and play it under this. But holy crap, you should see the licensing fee. Here, I'll just hum some bars for you. Dun, 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 dun. Just go with it. So the big news, the old savior is dead. Kovalchuk, 2 years ago, signed to bring much needed scoring to the team, has been moved out. He will not be playing with the team for the quote unquote foreseeable future. And based on Deke's dating history, I can tell you, quote unquote foreseeable future can be a very long time. Sure, I'll go out with you again, but not for the foreseeable future. 30 years later, Julie, call me. So looks like the end. The end for the Kobe man. Fortunately, we'll still have the Instagram account for his wife. Stalkers. Now, if you go read the boards, of course, you will see everybody knew when he was signed that it was a mistake. That's some selective memory, because I seem to remember when he was signed, there were a lot of people who thought it was a good signing. In fact, I would say majority of people. Now, there were some people who said it was not. But not the 99.9% we're seeing on the boards now who are saying, oh, I knew it was a terrible signing. So, I'm going to be honest. I thought it was a good signing. When it happened, I did. I thought it was a good signing. I thought it was 1 year too long, but I figured, with all the vets getting old, we'll probably suck in 3 years. Anyways, my reason why I thought it was a good signing was, my God, we needed somebody who could score. A winger who could pump, pucks into the net. 5-on-5, I thought, I don't know how great it'll be 5-on-5, but I thought on the power play, you put him in the Ovechkin position, you let him hammer away. He's going to score a lot. It'll be good. It'll be beautiful. If we can win on the power play, we can win a lot of games. Maybe we get into the playoffs. Quick gets hot. Kobe's pumping in power play goals. Yeah, you never know. It could happen. It didn't. Oh boy, did it not. So, honestly, the only way to really view it is kind of a disaster, pretty much. Guy still has a hell of a shootout shot. Unfortunately, the Kings don't get into shootouts every game, so oh man, I thought for sure on the power play at least he would be able to hammer him in, and every once in a while he would. He had that one earlier this year, where he had the shot from up by the point, and he just blasted away a one-timer, and it was a thing of beauty. It just rarely happened. So out he goes. I think most people are happy with that. So good news, item 1. Good news, item 2, Vilardi. You do realize how soul-crushing this is going to be if it doesn't work out, right? He doesn't skate for however long. He comes back, he's skating on his own. He's feeling as good as he's felt in 12 months. Then we see him skating videos with Stoll up and down the ice, with Bort. One quick thing. Did you notice how big Vilardi is? If you didn't, go back and look at the videos. He is a big boy. He's got to be 6'4", 6'3", and he's a thick guy. So if he gets back, it's going to be great. And of course, the big news is he's done all he can do skating by himself. Going to start practicing with the ring. And the red jersey of shame shall be retired, given to Forbert in a solemn ceremony. And Vilardi will be just a regular old player, and he'll practice for a couple weeks, and they'll see how he's doing. Now, realistically, that's great and all. Very happy. But we've been down this road before. We don't really know what's going to happen until he gets into a game and he gets just slammed by somebody into the boards, at which point he'll either pop back up and be fine. It's going to be a glorious career. He'll snap in half, or he'll fall to the ice in a puddle, and you'll be able to see his soul slowly move out of his body and start floating up to the rafters. So we ain't there yet, basically. And I bet there's a lot of nervous Kings management. I bet his family's nervous. I bet he's nervous, until they get that first big hit and see what happens. But obviously, if he can come back, if he can get back to what we thought he was going to be, and he's healthy, wow, this is just a huge step. This is bigger than any other bit of information this year. It really is. Probably last year too. Maybe drafting Turcotte. But Vilardi is, wow, he's just would make a huge difference. So great news, but we're not there yet. And then 3, the win-win-win. The kids, for real. So if you looked at McClellan, the way that he worked his lineups and some of his other stops, he didn't always do great with the kids. Didn't give some of them time. In other cases, he maybe played kids that he shouldn't have. You look at the kid in the Oilers' first round pick, the Finn kid, Jesse, who's no longer with them. Yeah, that kid was treated poorly. I mean, you saw some of the interviews with some of the other GMs, and they were just saying that guy should have never been at the NHL. They just ruined him. And so you never really knew what McClellan was going to do with King's kids. And I got to be honest, as you know, I've bitched quite a bit about it. I was very disappointed at the beginning of the season because there was only like one or two of them in the lineup. And obviously, it seems like he's seen the light. Like he has, he probably was going to take 20 games to gauge the veterans and realize the veterans are not great. And so we're starting to see some moves. So the big news, of course, the 97 line will be up. They'll be playing the third line tonight. But did you also notice Dom Amadio? He made McClellan an offer he couldn't refuse, and he will be the 2C tonight. So if you consider Amadio a kid, which I still do, that's great. And of course, I've been talking about Amadio. I thought he should have been 2C a while ago, but apparently his defense was horrible. Well, supposedly he's done enough now, I guess, to get back up there, or McClellan is just so desperate that he's just going to try it and damn the torpedoes. And then, of course, we have Luffer coming up. Luffer is one of those guys that's definitely going to be a frustrating one. He's going to have games where he scores a beautiful goal, and he's going to have games where he's just disappears and his player on defense scores a couple goals. Not sure I see a huge future for Luffer, even though I like him personally. I think some of the goals he scored were rather creative, which is something the Kings desperately need. But nonetheless, kids are moving up. So, viva la McClellan and Blake. Credit to them both. I don't know how they got there, but at least we're seeing it. So hopefully it goes well and we don't destroy any of the kids and what have you. 4, Philly, Robbie, Hexy. Philly referring to Phil Anschultz, Robbie referring to Rob Blake, and Hexy. So, full disclosure, I am not a Rob Blake fan. Loved him as a player. Don't like him as a GM. Think he's really poor. And Hexy, loved him as a player. Pretty positive about it as a GM, but not completely. I'm also a Flyers fan, as you probably know. He did actually a very good job there. He did make some mistakes, but he obviously got fired, but that was probably more political. But he did make some mistakes. He never dealt with the goaltender situation there before Carter Hart was ready and things like that. But he rebuilt that whole franchise. When he went to Philly, it was a disaster. They didn't even really have a farm system. It was so bad. They were so lacking talent. And so you can see, go look at their players, look at the kids 24 and under that are playing for them now that are difference makers. You can see how he restocked it, and there are more kids coming. So he would definitely be a proven commodity when it comes to building a team, building a roster, rebuilding a farm system and what have you. So personally, I'd rather see him as the GM over Rob Blake. So with that disclosure out of the way, interesting thing that I'm wondering about is Phil Anschultz. So, highly successful businessman. And I actually work with people like this. I haven't worked with him. I've actually worked with one of his competitors. People of this sort, they are not particularly emotional about the decisions they make in relation to their management teams, but they are also not particularly patient. They'll stand for a mistake. They usually don't have a problem with it unless it's just like something blazingly obvious. They usually aren't gonna sit around and watch you make multiple mistakes. And with Blake, whatever I may think of him, he's starting to get quite a few negative checks, some key ones there. Obviously, the Kobe signing, negative check. Hiring Willie Desjardins, negative check. And then from a management perspective, how he handled last year, to me, is just a glaring negative check. And I'd be interested to wonder, to see if Anschultz feels the same way. So basically, when you run a business, and although he was the GM and not the president, he's effectively running the Kings as far as the customers are concerned. Well, when things are going bad, that's part of what you're getting paid for. You show up. You're front and center. When mistakes are made, when a project goes sideways, you come front and center and deal with the customers. Because if the customer's unhappy, you need to make sure you're communicating with them. To see an example of how this should be done, go watch Detroit and watch Yzerman, see what he does. When they have bad games, when people start questioning the coach, whatever it is, he comes forward and talks to people, and he's front and center on it. And what I can guarantee you is once Detroit finally turns the corner and they start winning, he's going to start moving into the background, just like he did in Tampa. You saw this with Dean Lombardi to some extent. When the Kings were bad, when they tore it down, he would come front and center. Now, Dean was kind of a weird bird when it came to the media, but that's generally the way you want it to happen. So what happened last year with Blake when the Kings season went completely sideways? He vanished. Yeah, he showed up at the end of the year and did a press conference, but that is not the way you handle that situation. And the problem with handling the situation that way is it then gives everybody else in your organization an excuse. And you can't have that, particularly when things are rough. You can't have, that kind of an atmosphere because people, human nature, they're going to take the easy way out. And so if they see the manager going up and taking a beating, well, then they're going to make their effort to, get their part of the job right. Now, was Blake dealt a bad hand with the Kings? Sure. I think we can all realize that. I mean, you just look at the age group and what have you. Frankly, he wouldn't have gotten the job if there weren't problems. But there's a difference between, how you manage and lead a group professionally and how you don't. And I think he showed some real lack of character there. So the question then is, Hexy, how did he actually get into the Kings organization? So break out your tin hat. We're going conspiracy theory. Do you think Rob Blake sat around one day and thought, I wonder what Ron Hextall is doing? Maybe I'll hire him so I can bounce some things off of him. Or do you think somebody above Rob Blake said, Rob, we want you to hire an outside source who you can bounce theories off. How about Ron Hextall? This is often done in businesses and in management when you're not entirely sure of an employee who's leading a project or something key, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to give him a chance, but I need a fallback position. And so you sometimes will go out and hire their potential replacement. And if they pull off the project or whatever it is you have them working on, then, hey, you have a great consultant and everything's great and you move forward. But if they bone it, well, you have a ready-made replacement who's already familiar with the issues with the organization and ready to roll. Is that what's happening with the Kings? I have no idea. But it is something that you do see. So you have to wonder if maybe Mr. Blake's tuchus is getting a little warm because some of the moves have been somewhat strange, to say the least. Now, again, just to be absolutely clear, I am not a Rob Blake fan as GM. If you are a Rob Blake fan as GM, then I'm sure it's all just circumstance. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, I don't think anything's imminent, but we'll see what happens at that trade deadline. Because I'm sure many of you, if you haven't a subscription to The Athletic or you heard about the article, there was an article yesterday where the journalist was talking to other people in the league about the Kings and about whether Rob Blake has waited too long to trade people. And most seem to think that he had, that the veterans are losing their value. The one argument was, well, what about Joe Sakic, and what he did with Duchesne in Colorado? And to me, that's a red herring because Duchesne was young and a good player. The Kings veterans are not young and they're not getting better. They're degrading. Nobody beats Father Time. So a lot of us were disappointed in the lack of trades last year. Obviously Muzzin went, but a lot of us were thinking maybe some other players would be traded. That didn't happen. So, this year again, we're having debates about who's going to be traded and when, and can they trade some of these guys? Can they move them? We'll find out. But I don't know. Just having run a business and dealt with situations like this, I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see Rob Blake gone at the end of the year. But then again, maybe not. Who knows? So anyways, wow. Who thought a Tuesday game against the Minnesota Wild would end up being so exciting? We should play this some more. Dig out.